If people know the purpose, the why things are important, why their work matters, if they can be reasonably reassured they're not going to get punished for trying their best or to contribute, if they understand how decisions are going to be made, you're not going to have a problem with contribution. So something that you're going to learn over the years is you think you're being flexible, they think you're being fickle, indecisive, and wishy-washy. And the rule of thumb with micromanagement is the more you involve yourself in telling people how to do something instead of what needs to be done, the more likely you are to be a micromanager. This happened to me early in my Marine Corps career before I really learned how to delegate and supervise. People don't come to work wanting to fail. You're going to get fewer early warnings when things are going wrong. Because when expectations are not clear, people guess. When somebody says, why should I bother speaking up? It's just going to get changed anyway. That's a huge deal for you that you have to take very seriously. And it just has this effect that lasts. For you, it's over. For somebody that happens to, it could never go away. Why was that task important in the first place? And how does that relate to everything that's going on? And how can I continue to contribute if the task is overcome by events? Commander's intent. Does your team lack initiative? This is actually a pretty common thing for us as leaders to think, or maybe say. We say things like, people don't take ownership anymore. Why does everybody wait for me to tell them what to do? We have an accountability problem. But here's something to think about. Teams don't want to be unsuccessful. They don't come to work to do a bad job. And more importantly, they don't become cautious or hesitant by accident. So if your team stalls out or they just can't get past the start line without your direct involvement every time, it's probably not as simple as just a motivational problem. It's a signal to you about your leadership style. Hi, I'm Mike Targus, retired Marine, founder of Senate-esque Leadership Coaching. I did 21 years in the Marine Corps as an infantry officer and 13 now as a project manager, engineer, and in sales in the civilian world. I've been on both sides of the fence, and I've created this leadership channel to share some of the more intangible leadership lessons that you may not read about in books, and it may take you a long time to figure out by experience. A team that is overall more passive than we'd like, and we're scratching our heads wondering why they're not taking more initiative. And this is going to make perfect sense once we get through all these points. Here we go, part one. If we're not careful, we can find ourselves describing our teams as risk-averse, passive, slow, or just not as good as they used to be. Good old days. People don't come to work wanting to fail. When people come to work, they adapt to their environment. They're watching what gets recognized and what gets rewarded. And on the other side, they watch what is punished and what is really a painful experience. And if it leads to embarrassment, correction, especially in front of their peers, or a reversal or a switching of the decision, their initiative just disappears. And think about it. It's not because they're weak or they lack skill. It's because they're paying attention to what's going on around them, of which you're a big part. Next, how are we indirectly punishing this initiative taking? Just like people don't come to work to fail, we don't come to work to be bad leaders. So why is this happening? And it's real subtle. So the first thing is you got to watch the way that you react when people make mistakes. Even if it's just one time that you react harshly towards somebody, especially in front of people, their peers, that's going to be hard to recover from. So something that you're going to learn over the years is when you're starting out your career as a leader, you're more apt, I think, to be like that at times. But what you learn over the years is that it's rarely a good idea to lose your temper or be loud and harsh like that. There's not a lot of situations that that's appropriate for. Because when you react like that to somebody, what that tells them and everybody around them is it's not okay to take risks. If you try something new, it doesn't work out, that's what I can expect. And you're not thinking of it that way, but that's what everybody's perception, or that can be what everybody's perception is. Next thing, vague goals and standards. This is one that you might not think of right away, but when people don't know really what's expected, think about it. Are they going to go above and beyond some imaginary standard? Most likely they're going to play it safe. They're going to be conservative. Because when expectations are not clear, people guess. And guessing feels dangerous, so they're going to really lower the bar for themselves. The next one is when you change the decision that you make. And I talked about this pretty recently. When you have the meeting after the meeting with somebody and you change the decision and people see that, they're going to be less likely to stick their neck out and recommend a solution next time because you're fickle. You change your mind too often. They don't understand why. And why are they going to put themselves out there if it's just going to be reversed? You think you're being flexible. They think you're being fickle, indecisive, and wishy-washy. So they're going to protect themselves. Here is how you're actually training your people to wait and to not move forward. Let's say you're seeing just average work, or maybe it's below the expectation. Not terrible, but not really what you're expecting. A lot of the work has incomplete information, or maybe things are brought up kind of late in the game. Things are not identified as early as they should. Sloppy work, routine mistakes. If you're not careful, you as the leader, you can overcompensate. You can start involving yourself in too many things as a reaction to that. Now, that's a hard balance to strike. If people are making sloppy mistakes or things are getting turned in late, you will have to have some level of involvement, but you want to always keep in mind what shadow are you casting in that situation. Are you taking all the trust back away from your people to replace it with your personal involvement? What signal does that send? So you want to strike a balance between getting yourself involved and supervising the right things without sending a signal that you don't trust people. Because when you do that, they're going to do even less. The other thing that this tells everybody is that you're going to get so involved anyway that maybe I'll just do a 50% quality job on it because you're going to step in and identify things anyway. So I can move things off my plate faster because I know you're checking. Number 4, micromanagement. Micromanagement is not a permanent effect. Micromanagement is just a symptom. It's not something that you can't overcome as a leader or your people can't overcome. Micromanagement really is a reaction to the situation. And the rule of thumb with micromanagement is the more you involve yourself in telling people how to do something instead of what needs to be done, the more likely you are to be a micromanager. And a pretty typical reaction of people when they're micromanaged is to just let you do your thing anyway. Because one of two things is going to happen. You're going to do the work yourself, in which case they're going to learn not to waste their time. And that's going to give you that impression that they're not trying hard. Or they're just going to let you, as the micromanaging supervisor or boss, accumulate so many things to follow up on that there's no possible way you're going to be able to follow up on all of them. This happened to me early in my Marine Corps career before I really learned how to delegate and supervise, is my platoon sergeants would just let me get involved in all these things. And in retrospect, it was a good learning experience that I got to go through that. So you want to steer clear of all that if possible. Focus on telling people what needs to be done, not as much of the how. And if you can do that, you're probably not going to have a problem with seeing a low level of initiative. Number 5, what are the costs to the team that are less obvious? One of the big ones is when you discourage initiative or risk-taking or people thinking ahead, making decisions proactively. You may say you want that, but for the reasons that we already talked about, you're already discouraging that. You're going to get fewer early warnings when things are going wrong. The quality of your decisions really is based, and this is the way you should probably think about it, is based on the inputs coming in on any particular topic. A lot of times we think, well, I have all this experience, so I don't really need as much input from the team. And that might be true in some cases, but very routine. If you deal with complex situations, chaos, friction, things not going as planned, new situations, unless you work in a very predictable environment, you need more than just experience. Experience is very helpful when it comes to predictable environments. And it is helpful in unpredictable. But in an unpredictable environment, you need quality inputs. You need sensors. You need people out there telling you what's really going on and what the problems to watch for are. But if you're discouraging that, again, unintentionally, if you're shooting people down, if you're micromanaging them, if you're doing their job for them, you're not going to get those inputs. And really, what it amounts to is you're not going to really know what's going on. When somebody says, why should I bother speaking up? It's just going to get changed anyway. That's a huge deal for you that you have to take very seriously. But the thing is, you may not see that. If you're just right here, if you're right in your own head and you're not paying attention to what's going on around you, People can look very courteous and polite. You talk, they nod, but there's really no understanding there. And you're not sure, there might be understanding, but you don't know that there's understanding. The point is, you got to really focus outward. One of the ways you do that is you just don't overload yourself with things that you can't participate in, control, or follow up on. And you get frustrated when you do get overloaded and you react harshly and you start shooting people down, and it just has this effect that lasts. For you, it's over. For somebody that happens to, it could never go away. Now, how do we fix these things? Speeches are not going to do it, motivational speeches. You got to make a few structural and procedural changes to the way you're leading. One really good one to consider is you want your meeting spaces, your meeting rooms, and when the meeting is actually taking place, you have to have that be a safe place where people can say just about anything on their mind. And no matter what they say, you have to have a measured response, even if it's totally off the wall, unless it's like appropriate. You got to try to find some good in it. Next thing is when you're the leader and there's going to be a time for you to say yes, no, or we're going this plan or that plan. Before you do that, make sure you have all the inputs that you can get. In fact, if you have let's just say you have a meeting room with 8 people in it and you get inputs from 4 of the 8, it's a good practice to go to the 4 that hadn't said anything, said, Mike, I didn't hear anything. What do you think? And then over time, people are just going to be that much more willing to participate, depending on how you react. Intent over details. So in military, commander's intent is a big concept central to pretty much everything we do, which is if the direct task that you assign me is no longer appropriate, why was that task important in the first place? And how does that relate to everything that's going on? And how can I continue to contribute if the task is overcome by events? Commander's intent. Think about clarifying your intention for whatever's going on. Clarify that instead of spending time on detailed how to do things. That is a big part of micromanagement, remember. Focusing on what needs to be done, not the how. So clarify your intent over details. Then you got to make sure that you tell people you do want initiative. And as soon as you tell them that, you have to demonstrate that it's safe when they do take initiative. Because psychological safety isn't being soft. It's being realistic about why people are going to contribute as a productive team member or not. And if you can do that, if you can have a safe environment for that consistently, again, you're not going to have a problem with the level of initiative with people. If people know the purpose, the why things are important, why their work matters, if they can be reasonably reassured they're not going to get punished for trying their best or to contribute, if they understand how decisions are going to be made, you're not going to have a problem with contribution. They will stop waiting for you to tell them what to do, and they'll be ahead of you. And that's really what you want. Your job should become easier over time because of that. Recap. In closing, if your team feels slow, sluggish, if it's just not like it used to be, if they're not taking those bold decisions, taking chances, don't look at them first. Look at yourself first. Ask yourself this: what is my behavior teaching these people? Because they're going to have a rational approach to adapting to their environment. And it's pretty much going to come down to what gets rewarded and what gets punished. And they're going to avoid what gets punished, which is what you want anyway. So you, as the leader, you make your decision on what people are going to have to adapt to when they come into work in the morning. And that's it. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If it was, consider subscribing, liking, or bringing somebody in. Follow for more practical leadership tips like these.